Yaps. It's in the name. So yesterday I did a video with Bernie Sanders on Andrew Schultz's podcast, the Flagrant. This was on the recommended video. It says Bernie Sanders agrees Dems are a threat to democracy on Andrew Schultz's podcast. This is by The Hill.
Senator Bernie Sanders admitted on comedian Andrew Schultz's Flagrant podcast that Democrats were a threat to democracy.
It all started when Sanders defended his support for then presidential candidate Hillary Clinton in 2016. Then Flagrant co-host Akash Singh asked Bernie this question. Take a look.
So before we do this, you guys see how these guys are like, they're a threat to democracy. These past 10 years, at least over here in America, the elections I feel are free and fair, but there has been fugaziness. There's been some manipulation behind the scenes. I also think the same thing over in India. I don't think it may be as bad, but I feel like every election, no matter what, there's going to be some back-end fugaziness. There's going to be some manipulation. In America's case, whenever you hear the left talking about, democracy, just think of replace the word with bureaucracy. Because the Democrats have a machine, and the machine is larger than the individuals. It's just who's going to be the one, who's going to be quarterbacking the machine. That's ultimately what it feels like for the Democratic side. And they're not about the people. They're just about keeping this machine perpetually going.
Ostensibly, there hasn't been a fair primary for the Democrats since 2008. Are they not also a threat to democracy? Yes. We often hear...
Fair enough. That is, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that point.
He's so old, he don't give a anymore. And he's just letting them know. He said, fine, I'm going to air out dirty secrets.
And that's why I'm proudly an independent. And that's the struggle. Are they going to open the door, or are they prepared to lose elections, literally, and maintain the status quo? Go down with the Titanic.
Sanders also said that he thinks he's run his last race since he is 87 years old. He addressed his oligarchy tour and whether he viewed Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as his successor.
Please say no.
Oligarchy tour is you passing the baton.
No, don't look at it like that. The oligarchy tour is...
I think we're all looking at it like that.
No, it's not passing the baton. I happen to, I think Alexandria is great.
Ah, shit.
But it's not my job to determine who the new leaders are.
Democratic strategist and...
See, it's not his job to determine who the leaders are. And when asked about back in 2016 when he was running, apparently the Bernie bros, this is what caused Bernie to lose the election, is the Bernie bros that supported him were racist, were bigots, were, Nazis before the Nazi word was cool to use again. Like, that was the issue. And he admitted to, people came in with his campaign. They brought up a whole bunch of different ideas, and ultimately when he was losing, they turned against him, and that's what starts happening. And you start seeing the same play against, popular podcast people like Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz, to even elected officials like Trump, to his friends and people that he trusts to run the government, or parts of the government, like Elon Musk. Like, it's honestly kind of insane.
And former advisor to Kamala Harris, Mike Nellis, has an optimistic view of the interview, writing on Blue Sky, quote, really glad to see Bernie Sanders following Pete Buttigieg's lead in going on the Flagrant podcast with Andrew Schultz. Good content.
Yeah, I think it was good content. I'm not surprised. Bernie Sanders has always been more willing than many other Democrats to be in different media environments.
Bernie Sanders has been on Joe Rogan, or Bernie Sanders has been on a lot of internet things. And the reason why I think he's so comfortable on it is because he's been consistent. Whether you like Bernie or not, the man's been around since dinosaurs. And even all the way back then, he was trying to, vote for or be a person of the people, focus on the community, and doing good for the sake of doing good. Like, Bernie has been on that. I may not agree with everything that comes out of his mouth, especially when it comes to like AOC, because I think AOC and Rahul Gandhi are quite literally the same. Might as well be Drew Rathi. Let them all go flirt and fraternize in a hot tub.
To allow people who don't explicitly agree with him, and this is his model of social change, people who don't know, he would probably say, they do agree with me, they just don't know it, but I'm going to talk to them about my economic issues, my working class issues, and try to win them over. He famously was on Joe Rogan, although at that time Joe Rogan was kind of an ideological fellow traveler of Bernie Sanders. I also saw a clip from this interview where he really laid into Bernie Sanders,
always throw
into
these low
identity
dabs.
politics. talking
jabs.
about how it's just poison for Democrats to uplift those issues. While we certainly want non-discrimination and good treatment for everyone, it's like your identity doesn't make you a good person. It's what do you stand for, what your values are, that I think is very, very appealing, especially to the podcast bro kind of circuit. He talked about how his supporters, were smeared as sexist and racist by, he said, just by the Democratic establishment that was totally beholden to Hillary Clinton and was totally trying to get him out of the way so that he would not be an obstacle to her coronation as the nominee and then the president.
Coronation.
That's basically what it was.
I
That's what they wanted it to be. It was not a coronation.
I often think about what would have happened if Bernie Sanders would have progressed forward. We would have had a different conversation.
We would have had
may
President Bernie Sanders.
We may have never seen Trump. Maybe it would have been a good thing.
I think Bernie very well I think he certainly could have. I think he might have even been likely to win in 2016 because just based on the outcome. In
Momentum.
The race.
Young people loved him. But one thing that I love about...
Sorry, I'll stop cutting you off. But she lost Pennsylvania and Michigan, states where I think Bernie would have overperformed her. But go ahead.
Right, simple numbers thing. I think that Bernie has been consistent in his views of just staying and protecting the working class. And I think both parties can learn from them. I mean, the big budget bill trying to cut Medicaid for millions of Americans, Republicans can learn from him, but also Democrats can learn from him of stop going with the flow and the establishment and understand that the working American feels forgotten about. You guys are speaking over their heads. And
we don't feel like we've been forgotten about. We have been forgotten about. That's why we're in the situation that we're in. People in power felt like they were at a place where they thought they could lose their power. So they were only focusing on themselves and keeping that power. Hence why the past 10 years it's all been blue and Democrats are running it. They don't care about the individual. They care about just keeping that machine perpetually moving.
What I think that Bernie Sanders is doing is committing to providing a response to Trump while most Democrats are, to the Americans, sitting on their hands. I'm not really sure what a lot of people are doing, but at least he and AOC are out there on this oligarchy tour. He's like, I am not the person that decides where the torch is being passed. I'm the person that just simply says, I'm going to do something, right? And so he's not trying to make that decision for the whole party, but it's time that the whole party starts to sit with him and take him more seriously to think about the way forward. I mean, both parties are dealing with public distrust. Like, we have to figure out how to come together. And I think Bernie, by going on podcasts like this, being open to not sitting in his own echo chamber, is really doing a good job. And I think that, that's a opening, even if you don't believe that it's AOC for the next iteration of the party, it's an opening to have a conversation with people like AOC, with people like Bernie Sanders, to figure out what this midterm strategy is. Because the worst thing that I really find annoying is that for 4 years, Trump was president and Democrats complained about all that he was doing, being a dictator, making all the Nazi references and everything that you can think about.
No, they just kept saying, they were the ones who were like freaking out, pulling their hair out and just saying wild shit. None of that stuff is true. Trump was never a dictator, never making, analogies or symbolism to Nazi Germany or anything like that. This is just the rhetoric of the left. It's just inflammatory language. It's just trying to get you emotional. That's all it's trying to do. Don't fall for it.
But the plan was to just allow Biden to run again, or to not have a plan and then switch to Kamala.
The plan was to not have a plan.
And the issue with Biden is we know he wasn't running the country, and apparently Elizabeth Warren was the one in charge of using the auto pin thing so that they could just use his signature and make legislations and pass certain things. That it made it look like that he signed off on, but he never did. And it's because we know he was compromised. And this is the issue, once more, proving the fact they don't care about the individual. They just want to keep the machine going.
That's just like, I just don't, that to me, that is ridiculous, and they can't let it happen again. Every party makes mistakes. We know that
this is true.
Democrats have their pendulum swing, Republicans have their swing, but it's really time to come together and allow some traditional norms to be broken so you can figure out what the next step looks like.
No. Traditional norms need to come back. Too many traditional norms have been broken. Having tradition, having value, building a family, a good, healthy nuclear family with character, building manners, being a good benefit to society, learning how to work in society, being, more thoughtful of what are your actions doing to those that are surrounding you. Like, if you're at a restaurant, are you playing music super loud to where the tables around you can hear you? If so, you probably should turn your shit down because not everyone wants to hear it, not everyone needs to hear it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the simple shit.
Given the cancer news, I think the plan was to drag Biden over the finish line into his second term and then have him resign and have Kamala Harris be the president, honestly. But we'll talk. We're talking so much about that. We're actually going to get back to that in a little bit. Staying on Bernie, I even think he handled this well, that exactly what you brought up, the question about AOC being the successor. And he says, well, because he's a actual Democratic thinker, he's like, well, it's not for me to decide who the next leader of this movement is. It's for the people to decide. I like her. I've helped introduce her to hopefully a wider variety of people, and then it's up to her and it's up to what the voters think. So he even handled that in a way that is ideologically consistent for him.
I don't think he said all of that. He just said, I like her and it's not up for me to decide. You could go the positive route of what he just said, or you can go what I think is probably the more realistic and probably cynical route of no, the machine is just going to pick who the next person is.
For him, credit where credit's due. I don't agree with Bernie Sanders on the vast majority of economic policies, at least. I think I somewhat agree with his foreign policy ideas, and I certainly appreciate his cultural views on identity politics not being the greatest thing for America or for the fate of the Democratic Party. That the Democratic Party tying itself to wokeness or pronouns in bios or whatever that is was not a good move from the standpoint of getting more Democrats elected.
Yeah, it's just stupid. Like if you're a girl, obviously you're a girl, so I'm going to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. If I'm talking to a dude, yes, sir, no, sir. Like, we don't have to play mental gymnastics of like, who am I talking to? What is your backstory? I want to make sure you feel seen and heard. Like, yes, but like if I'm ordering coffee, I don't care.
So, I continue to appreciate his participation in this dialogue, even though he's certainly not my guy, but
I think Bernie Sanders advising.
It doesn't have to be your guy to appreciate what he's doing, though.
Would be a great idea. I think we definitely need to figure out a more centrist position to take in order to win the election in the future, and not have somebody like Vance progress forward or Marco Rubio and be the candidate in a couple years and beat the.
Whoa, Marco's grown up. Marco Rubio's been, honestly, he's been probably the most shockingly good thing to come so far out of this. I don't agree with a lot of, or I shouldn't say a lot. I don't agree with some of the stuff that's going on with the people that I voted for, right? But at the end of the day, they're human. People are going to make mistakes. I agree with most of what's kind of going on, but there are some little details where I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But Marco Rubio's, every time that I've seen him talk and he's come out and, done his job, doing it to the best of his ability, and he's doing it to where I approve of it.
The Democratic Party, but I also think that Bernie has a lot of good things to say and really resonated with young people. And if the conversation was all about age over the next election, first it was about Biden's age, then it was about Trump's age, then it was about both of their ages. And Bernie is a similar age to both of them, but also really translates, is on some of the most popular podcasts. Like you said, he's been on Joe Rogan, he's on Andrew Schultz's podcast, and just sitting there lounging like an everyday friend, having a chat. I think that says something about cutting through and speaking to young people as opposed to age saying it.
He's a reminder that it's not the number itself. Everybody ages differently, and he is not, again, while I don't agree with him, he's not lost any of his coherence or mental capacity. He's aging well. He's not hit that point yet where you see a diminished capability, as we've clearly seen with Biden. So it is, people age differently. So some of our members of Congress are still, rare and ready to go in their maybe.
I do think, even though I like Bernie and I agree with some of the stuff he says, I think there should be an age limit. I genuinely 70, maybe even 75, and you're done. Move on. Give it to the next generation who has more energy, more power, and a better working brain.
Late 80s, although, when you get up to that point,
we're not doing 100-year-old Congress people.
Just more and more likely that you're going to have some sudden decline. I mean, most of us know this from our elderly relatives, that they're fine one day, and then the next day you notice that, hey, you're a little out of it, and then it's like there can be a very rapid decline that happens during your term in office. So I would still like to get some younger people represented in the halls of Congress.
Bernie Sanders needed to do that. So up next, from Springsteen to Beyonce.
Let me know what you guys think about all of this. How would you, if you had a magic wand How would you fix the area that you live in, whether it be in India, China, America, Canada, wherever you're from? Nowhere is perfect. If you had a magic wand, how would you fix it? But that's going to be my question for you guys. And now my challenge for you guys, make somebody laugh today. We know there's enough hate, there's enough vitriol out in the world. So be a light in someone's life. Cast a light over the shadow that is over their head. And bring a smile to their face. Make them laugh. Give them a good chuckle. Give them a good ha-ha. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.